Yo, Chad, thank you for hanging out with me.
Nah,
man.
absolutely,
I really
man. I'm happy to
appreciate
be
it,
here, bro.
For real.
We've been talking about this conversation for a minute, so.
Yeah, man. First Blunt Raps podcast.
Very blunt. Yes.
Absolutely.
Very open, yes.
So tell me about your album, man. Where it's streaming, when it came out. Let's go
Yeah,
with
so
all that,
Trials
man.
just came out this past Friday. It's been like 3 years since my last full project that I came out with. So it just feels good, man. It feels good to just release. Kind of been bottling up a lot of creative energy. So, now that that's like kind of being dispersed, it's just, just happy,
Well, hey, on my end, thank God it's finally out, man, because I heard it, kind of before it came out. Landon was,
sneak peek a little bit, yeah.
Landon, showed me a bit, and I just told him, I was like, man, you got to get me this so I can just add it to my playlist. It's awesome. But, man, tell me how it came about. When were you like, this is what I'm doing, this is my shit, I'm about to produce this album? Obviously you made music before it, but
100%. So I mean, coming off of so like my freshman year, I came out with this EP called Rookie of the Year.
Okay.
And so with Rookie of the Year, this Thomas, we worked a large portion of freshman year, and then COVID happened. So then once that kind of like split happened, it was just like, I was working like a lot on other music, and I started just like kind of, when you're in quarantine, it's just like I was trying different flows and just different styles that I kind of wanted to try, but obviously I just like my overall morale was just like kind of down, because like everybody's just kind of going through it at that time. So
for sure,
creatively I definitely hit a block, definitely hit like a roadblock, and it was kind of hard to pull myself out of that. So sophomore year, I started to, in my quest for just like kind of, I wanted to try, a little bit of, introducing R&B into my music. I've done it before, but trying to, just try to do it a little bit more. I feel definitely a lot more comfortable doing that now. And that's when Replay came about. Okay. So Replay, produced by Coach CSD, shout out to him. He, we've been working since sophomore year, since I met him. And that track was like the beginning of Trials. That was like the first track that I had, and I had other songs that I eventually kind of just like either never came out with, or they're just kind of still in the works. So that was like that first song that I was like, okay, I know I want to make a project, I just don't know where it's gonna go.
So Replay was actually
Replay was the first one. I had no idea like where I wanted to go with it. I had no idea that I was gonna make a project of 7 songs with this. You know what I mean? Like the vision wasn't there yet. It was just like I had that one song that I was like, okay, I'm just gonna continue to make more songs. So
yeah, so no, that's kind of funny to me that was the first one, just because like that was one I heard, and it's just like it's so catchy and it's just such a good melody, and I was kind of like, I don't know if I'd call it a straight up like love song, but like what's kind of the background of the story behind it? Because you're talking about I'm crazy about you, like my favorite song, like that was crazy to me, because like I hadn't heard kind of a like analogy or metaphor like that since when you listen to like Favorite Song by Chance the Rapper, that's kind of an overall, because a favorite song is so special, it's so dear to someone. Because if you're into music, it's like to call something your favorite song, like that's a big deal, So like, if you could tell me about that,
was definitely in a place where I knew like, as far as like my songwriting, I've been working on that like forever. So like, I'm trying to figure out different ways to come up with those analogies and those metaphors to kind of like, talk about songs, you know what I mean, and make songs. So a lot of times in my music, like I kind of get wordy sometimes. So I was trying to figure out how to condense everything and kind of make something that was just easy flowing. And that's how the hook to like Replay came along, was just like, I don't know, sometimes it's just like, it's kind of like hard to explain. Like I feel like it's just like, it just kind of happens sometimes. Yeah, it just like kind of happens sometimes with certain songs. Cool. And I definitely feel like my approach with songwriting has definitely like shifted ever since like taking music classes. Like, cause like before it was like, I had such a raw approach with like my writing that, it wasn't with any sort of like song or, any like music background tied to it. It was just kind of like, raw, just like me exploring music, and then, being in Frost and kind of like taking those music classes, like kind of just opened my ear to a lot of different things, and, just became a better songwriter, and just, through everything. So, yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. But I mean, it's just weird, because it's like that song specifically, like how does that end up with, you know, the rest of the songs, and how does that all kind of like tie in together?
Play
It's just
together.
like it just all kind of just happened.
For
know?
sure.
So
I mean, yeah. And, you know, and you said, you know, you were like, you're kind of wordy in your lyrics. And, like, that's personally, like, the kind of rap that I like, or, like, you know, song that I, like, gravitate to, just because I'm, like, very big on kind of, like, wordplay and how it's all structured and all that. And to me, when I first listened, I was, like, very poetic in, like, the genuine sense of, like, poetry and, like, how kind of, you know, everything was so on point and particular, for lack of a better term, you know, like really, like I was like, nothing was by accident.
Right.
Whatever. So like, and I know, you know, I think I saw on your website that you started writing poetry, right?
Yeah, so I
Like,
started, I mean, when I was before I was in high school, so around like 7th or 8th grade, I would, you know, just like kind of write these poems that were just like kind of aimed at just making fun of stuff. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
you know, with
yeah.
my friends and stuff like that, like, and, you know, like I would just like kind of just make these like parody, like, you know, songs, like verses of like parody songs.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And then, that, like, I would just like kind of do that for fun. You know what I mean? Like, you know, when you're in 8th grade, like 14, you know, 13. So
For sure, just messing around.
Then when I got to high school, that's when like I took the poems that I wrote and kind of tried to see how I can like kind of twist them into songs.
For sure.
And, you know, I would just
Yeah.
like kind of find different instrumentals and stuff like that, like at that, you know, basic level. Just try to find a beat, you know what I mean? See if it fit with whatever I wrote. And then like that was just kind of it. And then I was just like, I made a song. You know what I mean? It was just like kind of like a really cool moment, because it was like, I didn't know what it took to like make a song. So like
sure.
to me, that felt like, oh shit, like I made a song.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, poetry was just like kind of like, I loved doing it when I was like younger, because like so one of the first books that I had like when I was like a kid was like Diary of a Wimpy Kid.
Yeah, absolutely.
So like, you know, the do it yourself one?
Of course.
So
yeah.
like, yeah, dude, like I was just like, I would always write, like that was like my journal. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like I was
yeah.
just like, I was always writing in that.
That's awesome.
So that's like, I feel like how I got my like love for just like writing.
Yeah.
It's like, I've always just like loved writing. So yeah.
No, I feel like shit, because I think one of my grandparents got me the same do-it-yourself book, and I never touched it.
Damn,
Man, you
dude,
actually
yeah,
did something
missed
with
out,
it,
bro.
And now I'm playing. That's awesome. That's awesome, man.
Oh man.
Yeah, so I got to go to my favorite real quick. You got to tell me about Now You Know.
Now you know.
Now You Know is like, because
Know.
just real quick, I immediately was like, this whole idea of like, if you don't know, now you know, or like, let them know, let the people know. That's like my like, it's kind of my thing. Like, full disclosure, my private story on Snapchat is called Let Them Know.
Yeah.
Like, whatever.
And you just
So,
gotta
like,
talk your shit. You
yeah,
know?
so you got to I need to know everything about Now You
Yeah,
Know,
bro.
man. I have to.
Now you know. I feel like when I first heard the beat, when Elliot played me the beat, so like, you know, Elliot's shown me crazy beats before, and he's
sure.
got his own knack for just producing like gems. So you know, when in the summer he had sent me a pack, and it had the beat to Imaginary Hope.
Okay.
So when I first heard that, I was like, dude, I love the intertwine between jazz and hip hop. I love that. Like that's just like kind of like that screams hip hop to me, because like I feel like that's like, you know, where a lot of the roots of that comes from, you know what I mean? And just sample flipping. I just love that that era of hip hop. Like, you know, I just, you know, the 2000s, that's like kind of just like what I feel whenever I get that, you know, that feeling. So as soon as I heard that beat, I was like, yeah, I just like kind of have to get back to a place of, before I was in terms of like my approach, I was like just trying to hit a home run, and I was trying to make a song that, you know, was like all catchy and trendy and something that people can dance to, and something that, you know, is just like, you know what I mean? Again, like that, you know, just like, you know, trendy.
For sure.
And by doing that, I like lost my whole sense of like where I kind of create from in the first place. So like when I lost that, it was hard to get back there.
Sure.
So when I first heard that beat, I wasn't in that place at that time to like come up with Imaginary Hope.
Okay.
At that time when I had gotten that beat. So I think he sent me that beat pack in like the summer, so around like, you know, July, June.
Okay.
I ended up making Now You Know and finishing it in like October.
Okay.
So around my birthday.
Cool.
So once that was done, it was just like kind of like, okay, I'm finally back in a place where I'm making music that's not in terms of like the approach surface level. You know what I mean? Because again, like there's a simplicity to like making, just like, records that, the masses can enjoy.
Of course.
But by doing that, I just like kind of like lost where I kind of create from. So I just needed, whenever I was doing that and taking that approach, it was always harder to come up with something that stuck.
Yeah.
Nothing was ever sticking. And it just felt forced. So I knew that I was just like, all right, I got to get back to just talking from my experiences and everything that I'm kind of going through and flipping everything that's going on in my life into like something good.
For sure.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, because, you just hop on and it's so like, I don't know if I call it upbeat, but it's very like affirmative, and you're just like, I'm trying to, stay away from what's been keeping me under or whatever.
Yeah, man.
I got to double down. I got to bet against the odds.
Exactly.
I was like, the first time I listened to it, I was like, holy shit. And it's because there's that thing with kind of, there's one thing because, you hear like the like tune of a song or something and it can really resonate with you. But when there are lyrics that just everyday people can kind of relate to, but it's not, again, like it's not like on a simplistic level of like, oh, like the masses can enjoy it because it sounds cool and it's very, simple in its course or whatever. No, like it was like, man, like that could relate to, a lot of people and what they're doing or what they're going through. So that was awesome. But then it was just like, holy shit, this is dope. Like, the bar heavy, like, yeah. So that was awesome. But, talking about your like 2000s influences or whatever. So like what rappers are like your favorites and also who just kind of got you started? Cause like, I know how I feel about kind of what I would like, who I would associate your music with, but I'm trying to,
Yeah. So I think my first introduction to rap, was between my brother and my cousin. So I got introduced, through them, that those were like not my first like early. When I mean early, I mean like when I was like 5 or 6 and like I'd be in like the car and then they would play like a certain song, and you'd have no idea like what's going on. You have no idea who it is. And, but that's just like kind of like your first memory of like hip hop or like first memory of whatever you're listening to, when you're young. So I remember very distinctly my first time I heard Got Money by Lil Wayne. And knew the words word for word after one day. You know what I mean? Like I just like fell in love with the music. You know what I mean? I just like, so Wayne was definitely like that first rapper that I got introduced to.
Okay.
And then when it came to me kind of getting a little bit older and really like kind of, venturing off and finding artists that I liked after that, Drake, Cole, Wayne, I mean, Wayne, obviously, Kanye, Kendrick, you know what I mean? That's when I started to really like venture out. And those were like, I mean, if you think of like, those guys, those are like, that's like the Mount Rushmore of the 2010s.
100%.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And of our generation, I feel like, not just the 2010s, but our generation. So, that's who I gravitated towards when I was in like middle school, you know what I mean? And I would, listen to records by them and just like kind of just be inspired because like the music, I just like, I felt connected to it, you know what I mean? And they're, in terms of like the attention to detail, not just with the lyricism and the metaphors and the wordplay and all the bars, but like the production.
For
just,
sure.
You know what I mean? So like, that kind of made me a nerd because it was like, I'm falling in love with like the records and like how they sound and stuff like that. Not just, you know what I mean, the lyrics and stuff like that. So that's like kind of like where I really knew like my love for music was deeper than just like, oh, this is cool, like this is fun, you know what I mean? Like I actually was like, I'm tapped into like what they're saying. I'm tapped into the production, you know what I mean? I'm figuring out, oh, who made this, you know what I mean? So they just kind of, that like their music kind of just like definitely sparked my curiosity with just like music in general.
Man, that's crazy because like you said, like middle school, like listening to those guys, and it's true that like looking at it now where I do know a little bit more about the music, it's just like you talk about guys like Kanye, Kendrick, Cole, it's like these samples they're using, these beats, all of it, like the wordplay is great, the bars are great, but it's like just what it's to, what it,
exactly.
It's playing over. I mean, there's just so many, like, there's so many times, like the first time I heard a song by any of those guys, and there was either some sort of switch up or just the first time you hear the beat and you're like, oh my God, like who did that?
Yeah. And,
so,
and
like,
every single time that when I was young, like hearing a sample, I'm thinking, oh, like that's like in my mind, the first time I'm hearing how that song is played. And then as I got older, I was like, oh shoot, they took that from there.
Right.
And then that was like, oh, like, and then you go back and you listen to that song, and then it's just like, oh, now I have a love for this song by like Al Green from like the 60s because it was used from a rap sample, you know what I mean? Or like an Otis Redding sample. So it's like, you know what I mean? Then it's just like, I kind of also grew up on just like not just hip hop, but like, you know, kind of just R&B and soul and jazz.
For sure.
So like that was just kind of like the music that was like being played around me. So I had just a natural love for like all forms of music. Like, you know, there's no one genre that like I don't like, if I'm being honest with you.
For sure.
Like I grew up playing Guitar Hero too. So like I rock with like, you know, heavy rock, you know what I mean? Like, you know, it's just like I can listen to it, you know what I mean? I may not listen to it on the regular, but like I feel like that's like the reason why I'm just like kind of open to any music.
So did some of that like passion for these like other genres outside of rap, like, you know, R&B, jazz, whatever it is, like did a lot of that come from like with your family? Like did, you know, your parents or anything like show you a lot of this music growing up before rap or everything?
Yeah, so like I said, like, so my brother used to rap. Okay. So that was like my first like introduction to like hip hop type of thing. Right. Like when I was like, you know, at a very young age, like I knew that he was, you know, making music and stuff like that, and he would play like, you know, stuff in the car. So like that was like kind of like my first introduction to like that. But my mom would always play a lot of Christian music, a lot of like radio, like Christian radio. So, you know, I'm hearing trying to think artists, Marvin Sapp. So like guys like, you know, just like a lot of like gospel. Grew up on a lot of gospel and stuff like that. So you know, Fred Hammond. So like a lot of those tracks like stuck with me and like kind of just like, you know, not just with my faith, like it kind of was like, you know, hand in hand with like the music. But like I just like loved how it sounded, you know what I mean? I just loved the sound of a choir, of a gospel choir. Definitely. You know what I mean? So it just but yeah, so like that was like the kind of music that was like, you know, played around me in the car and stuff like that. So between that and the hip hop, I was just like, okay, I know this type of music and I like this type of music, but like I definitely am more of a hip hop fan than like any other genre for sure. Yeah.
I think that's what's so cool about music too, is like you can totally go in one direction and be focused on, you know, maybe hip hop a little more, but you'll still be taking stuff from the other, you know, like, and again, that's like, since I'm still learning so much all the time, it's like, you see how everything's intertwined, you know, like how all these different genres of music are just kind of can come together and create a song, an album, like whatever it is. So, which is awesome. Yeah. Dang, man. So, you got like a personal favorite track you've made?
One of my favorite songs that I've ever made, there's a lot, like, you know, over the years, you build like an emotional connection with certain songs, you know what I mean? Like certain, because like for me, like the songs that I write just kind of paint the picture to my life. So whenever I think of a song, it's just like, okay, I can remember exactly where I was when that song was like kind of like in the works, and then when that project came out that it was a part of. So like that's like kind of, it gives me like that, the memory aspect is like kind of attached to it. So I would say I think my favorite song is this song called All Alone that I wrote in high school as part of an album called The Campaign. And that was like one of my most vulnerable songs, because like that was like one of the first songs that like I guess I was really more open and honest about like things I was really struggling with, like on more of like a very forward way, and just like that was kind of me saying, okay, like I could always make metaphors for like what's actually going on whenever I'm writing, but like I'm just gonna say it how it is. Right. Like I'm struggling with this, I'm struggling with that. Like, you know what I mean? And that was like my first time being like comfortable, like being like, okay, I can like really, there's no limit to like how much I can express and me feel like I'm being too vulnerable and like shy away.
For sure.
So like those like tracks like that kind of just gave me like that freedom to just be like, okay, like it's okay to like talk about what's actually like kind of going on.
For sure.
You know what I mean? Yeah, you don't have to like mask that kind of stuff. So,
and that like, you know, like for me, like hearing that now, it makes even more sense with like some of the songs. Like, you know, you're like, oh, like maybe I am better off with music as my therapist. You know what I mean? Like maybe like just like little stuff like that. So like, I don't know. You would definitely say that making music, all your music has definitely helped you get through,
100%.
low times,
And
high
that's
times,
that's
like,
kind of
whatever.
exactly how it is for me, because it's like therapy for me was something I was introduced to when I was young. Like that would, like, I went to therapy for, like, just kind of grieving over, like, the loss of, like, my grandmother. So like when I was young, it was just like weird for me to deal with that, because like that was the first, like, person that was close to me that, like, had passed. So like that for me was, like, hard to deal with. So through the therapy, I was able to kind of, like, handle that at, like, 10 or 11 or so.
For sure.
So then the music for me was, like, kind of inspired by that, because it kind of gave me a way to just, like, kind of just talk about it. Not necessarily that per se, but whatever was going on in my life.
Right.
It didn't necessarily have to be me grieving over something, but it was just like whatever. Like, when I first started, it was just very raw, because it was like I had the entirety of my life to pick and choose from.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I just, like, kind of had a love for just, like, writing about it. So it just became a place for me to just, like, it be as me as possible. And like I said, I already had that love for writing, because, like, I was always journaling. So like that, I flipped it into music, and it just became more fun, I guess you can say.
For sure.
So yeah.
Awesome. So like when you were in here, like, the last however many months making this music with, Thomas, like, whatever, like, I mean, how many days a week, like the hours, like what was your schedule like, man?
Damn,
like,
dude.
Sounds great. Yeah, if he wants to weigh in on that a little bit, because
Well, Tommy lives in here basically.
Okay.
He's the studio rat.
Okay.
David, grab the mic. You gotta say a few words. Yeah. We were in here a lot, dude. A lot of weekends where we would just be in here from literally, when I say, like, 7 or 8 until like 2, 3, sometimes 4. Like I'm, biking back home 4 a.m. Like those were like the sessions where it was just like you feel fulfilled, because like not just, you're spending so much time and you're just like kind of working on it. Even if we were just like working on one song for that amount of time. The reason why it was so fulfilling is because like it always just kind of flew like that. It never felt like we were in here for like 8 hours straight or like 7 hours straight. I don't know if you got that same feeling, because like I know you're in here a lot.
Do you want me to pull up a chair?
Yeah, come on.
Yeah,
Give me one second. Give me 1 second.
You're good.
So yeah, about how long would you say, roughly?
How long, like hours wise?
Yeah.
Or? I don't know. All I remember is like, at least for like me and Chad have been like recording for trials specifically for like since September.
Jeez.
And so it's been a while, and I remember especially at the beginning. I don't want to like speak too much on like his experience, but I remember it's like especially at the beginning of the semester, it was a lot of like you coming out of like a time where you had like a lot of pressure to like do like a specific type of music, and it wasn't like fun for you anymore. And I feel like a lot of those sessions at the beginning was less so like really going down and like tracking like seriously, but it was more so like just being able to have fun with the music again.
For sure.
And I remember those first sessions that we did like during that semester was like we would just stay in here. There's just like a couple of weekends where he would ask me like, yo, like what days are the studio open this weekend? And I'm like, it's open every single day of the weekend if you want it. And so we would be in here Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday night for like multiple weekends in a row. And this was back when like nobody else had their license for the studio. So it was like
you and like 2 other people.
Yeah, it was
right?
like me and like a couple of other people. And so it was just like, it was just us, and we would just like hang out and it's like until like ungodly hours. Like I think like we went until like 6 a.m., like 6:30 once.
Jeez.
And like I don't stay up like that. Like the latest I'll stay up is like what, like 3 a.m. on like on a bad day, you know?
So he was a little bit of a bad influence. I don't even know.
Bro, I mean that one 6 a.m. was like a
no.
little nuts.
Yeah.
I remember that. And we did one like that freshman year too, where I was like, holy shit, it's 6 a.m.
Yeah, and I remember freshman year. I've been working with this guy for a while. Freshman year, it was funny. I had a room 405 in like the freshman dorms. And it was like it was kind of funny because that's when I didn't have access to this room or like any of the other studios here. And so what we would do is I just had like my like Focusrite interface in my room and like a crappy like microphone that I got for like $200 online or something like that. And just recently we were looking back at the projects that like never got released. And I'm like, now compared to like, I'm using like what, like tens of thousands of dollars worth of equipment like in here in this room. And I'm listening to these like old demos and I'm like, why do these sound better than like the ones that I'm doing in here? But yeah, man, it's been a really cool time like working with him and like everybody that we've got on our side. And like this project has definitely been like really fulfilling. Yeah, man.
For sure. I mean, you guys created something, you know? And like, it doesn't matter what way you look at it when you're creating any form of music, any sort of album. Like, I think what's cool about that is like, you know, there's other stuff where like, let's say you like start a business and you have a product or something, whatever, like product or service. You might be like, other people might have to do labor and you might be, you know, like other people have to kind of suffer for what you're doing. With music, with what you guys are doing, you're just creating. You know what I mean? You're in here and like, I feel like it's just always authentic in a way, always raw. And so it was cool to kind of hear about what you were doing, you know, behind the scenes, you know, doing everything with that and like just kind of helped me gain an appreciation for how this stuff works, like for real. So thank you both, man. Like it's cool as hell.
And the way it goes too is just like none of it, like we can't even put a number on like how long we feel like we've been in here because it's all just kind of like it just like goes, you know what I mean? Like the time we're in here just like kind of like
I swear to God, time like moves differently in this room too.
No, it does.
It's like we'll get in here and like what, like 9 p.m., 10 p.m. And the next thing you know, like we haven't even like tracked anything and it's already like 2 a.m. You know?
Yeah, for sure.
It's crazy. It's insane.
So you have like, was it like that 6 a.m. session or something else? Like, was there like one session that you walked out and you were like, that was like one of the craziest times ever? Like, I don't know what just happened, but like we were just, whether it was just like super fun or it was like maybe one of the songs you finally got it right or something. Like, sorry, no, it's a little tough one, but yeah. You know.
I mean, I have a couple in mind. I don't know if you got any.
I think there wasn't like any one specific session that was like, oh, like I, you know, like, because like anytime I leave here, I'm like always thinking, okay, like, you know, what can I do that's like, you know, what's after this. So there was never like when we made a song and we, you know, kind of like, you know, did the mix and stuff like that where I was like, okay, you know what I mean? Like this is something. I think that when we were done with the project and like we were done with like the recording aspect and I knew that was like it with like, as far as like, you know, the writing and the recording, that was like the most fulfilling session because like that was just like, all right, we can like I can just breathe now. We can just focus on like making it sound the way it's supposed to sound.
For sure.
But yeah, how about you?
I think like I remember like when we recorded Silver Linings, when we were recording it, I was like, oh my God, dude, this song is crazy. And then like there's this other time, and this is just it's less so of like a fulfilling thing and more so it was just like a funny story. We had when we were tracking like our ideas down like at the very beginning, when we were still, you know, like just having fun with it, what we would do is like the way that this studio is set up is like you can have it so like he can listen to everything in the room like when he's recording and we can listen to something entirely different in here. And so what we would do is we would play this game where we would isolate his vocals in here while he's tracking, and we would try to line it up with a different beat. And like, he would come back in and he would be like, yo, like, how did I sound? And we're like, I have no fucking clue. You know, because it's like, we were just like dicking around the entire time. Because, I don't know, that was a lot of fun. And I think I have like a couple of videos of that if you want to see it at some point. But I think the only other one was like, that really comes to mind is like that we did like a little like listening party in here like just after the project was like all finished and everything, and I swear to God that was like one of the best nights of my life because it's like we've been working on this like thing for so long.
It felt good to, you know,
it was crazy.
Just enjoy it for you know. Yeah.
I'm sure, man.
Yeah.
Jeez. All right, well, I gotta ask about Picture Perfect.
Okay.
Because Carlo is crazy. If you guys want to shout out Carlo, I will as well.
Shout out Carlo.
I met
He
out
already
for the
knows.
met him for the first time.
He already
the other
knows.
day.
Yeah.
I mean, he was crazy, but I talked to him a bit. When I met him like after your show, whatever here, and he was like, I was asking him about his parts, and because his voice is so pure, but also what he's saying, kind of that whole story to the song. And he was like, man, Chad orchestrated all that, with like kind of how it's set up with like his part and your part in the middle and the whole story to it. So, from like both of you guys, just let's go with that song, man. It's so pure.
Well, I mean,
it's so much fun to listen to. Like,
yeah, I mean, well, so as far as the production, I mean, shout out Kid Kuza.
Shout out Kid Kuza.
Shout out Kid Kuza.
Okay.
Oh man, I have this story for you, man.
Yeah, we'll
get to it. We'll get to
that.
it.
So, basically, long story short, before we get into that, he had sent the pack, and that was one of the beats. As soon as I heard it, I was like, yeah, I'm definitely, yeah. You know what I mean? And so the first artist that I had in mind to hop on that was Carlo, 100%, because I knew I wanted somebody that, in terms of like the vocal range, it kind of fit, the key of the song. And, he's just so talented. Like, we've been working on songs for so long, but we've never gotten something to stick and something like to finish. You know what I mean? So, freshman year, we had like a lot of demos and a lot of like stuff that we were working on, but nothing ever like came out of it. So now we were finally able to like get that one song in. So I feel like that was like, that was really good. But I think that, yeah, I mean, Picture Perfect is definitely, I feel like it was one of my favorite songs like to write on the project. But he's so talented when it comes to coming up with like the melodies that it kind of just made my job easy as a songwriter to just like kind of figure out what words kind of fit. Because he's just so good at just coming up with those melodies. So
of course. Yeah, no, it's sick, man. It's something. But
yeah, so I mean, for me, I feel like Picture Perfect is like definitely one of my favorite songs on the project, and the biggest reason why is because it's like my whole thing is like I always want to get people that I know to like work with each other, and so Kid Kuza, the guy who produced the beat, is one of my friends from back at home, and he lives like across the street from me in like back in California, and it's funny because I met him in New York. And then, like, we came back. It's like, well, yo, like, we both live in California, like, right next to each other. Like, we're literally, like, neighbors. It was crazy. But I've just, like, seen him grow, like, especially since, like, high school. He's a crazy producer, crazy rapper. And then when I moved to Miami for school, I was like, yo, like, you should definitely work with, like, some of the guys that I've been working with over here. And he's always like, yeah, like, I'll get to it, like, whatever. Could I tell him? Could I? Yeah. All right. So basically, it's like I was like trying to push him, like, yo, like you got to work with Chad, dude. Like you got to work with Chad. You got to work with Carlo. Like they're both like super talented. Like you need to at least have like one song with them. And he was like, yeah, I'll get to it. And then this was back when there was like this opportunity potentially for like Chad to get like a Dreamville feature. And it was this huge thing. He's like, yo, like, there's this, like, opportunity for this, like, massive feature. Like, I need beats. And so I go to Kid Kuza. His name's Brian. So I go to Brian. And, like, Brian is a huge fan of Dreamville. Like, he loves Dreamville. And I was like, bro, like, I swear, if you don't send me beats right now, bro, you're gonna like, lose out on, like, the best, like, opportunity, you know? And I swear to God, I have never gotten a beat pack in my email like that quick. It was crazy. Like,
jumped on that shit.
that's awesome.
And it was
funny.
It was crazy. It's like all the beats in there were just like amazing, you know? Yeah. And like the fact that song ended up being the one that like it not only